So, if you've ever left a stable full-time job, and it doesn't matter if it was, hard or easy, paid well or not,
Right.
and you still felt this deep tension, the kind that just doesn't shut off even on the weekend,
hmm
then this deep dive is definitely for you. We're not talking about just being physically tired.
No, not at all. This is that mental, that sort of psychic drain that just sticks with you long after you've clocked out.
And it seems to come from a really strange place.
It does. It stems from what's essentially a core societal paradox, one that's been building for, well, almost 100 years now.
You're talking about that prediction, the John Maynard Keynes one from 1930.
Exactly. Keynes looked at the incredible pace of technology, automation, efficiency, all of it, and he made this huge prediction.
Which
He
was,
basically said that by the end of the century, countries like the UK and the US would have solved the economic problem.
meaning we'd be so productive we wouldn't all have to work so much.
Precisely. His bet was on a 15-hour work week. The rest of our time would be for, leisure, culture, living.
And looking back, the tech part of that absolutely came true. We automated farming, manufacturing, the supply chain
Yeah.
it's hyper efficient.
The tools were there. We could have had that 15-hour week.
But we didn't get it. Instead, something else happened. A huge collective pivot.
The sources are incredibly clear on this. Instead of mobilizing all that technology for freedom and leisure, we mobilized it to find new and often kind of pointless ways to make people work more.
And the cost isn't just lost time.
No, it's causing deep moral and spiritual damage. When you have whole populations spending their lives on tasks they secretly believe are useless, it leaves what one writer called a scar that gashes our collective soul.
And that's the tension, that exhaustion of the spirit.
That's it.
Okay, so let's unpack this because the data really does back up the first part of what Keynes predicted, the efficiency part.
It really does. Over the last century, the number of people working in, let's say, productive jobs, agriculture, industry, it shrank dramatically.
Just like automation promised.
Yep. In the U.S., for instance, those workers dropped from about half the workforce to barely 20%.
So if we're not making things, where did everyone go? You'd think they would have gone into other necessary jobs, right? Nurses, teachers, people fixing bridges.
Well, some did, of course. Those sectors grew. But the massive swell, the real explosion, was in administrative and organizational work.
Such as?
Financial services, telemarketing, corporate law, all these layers of university administration, HR, PR, management consulting.
The jobs that the sources call bullshit jobs.
That's the term they use. Work that if it just vanished tomorrow, the world would probably be fine. Maybe even better off. It's work created just to keep people busy.
Okay, but hold on. Let's push back on that for a second. If capitalism is supposed to be ruthlessly efficient, why would huge companies pay for millions of employees who don't contribute anything tangible?
That's the million-dollar question.
It really flies in the face of classical economics, which says you should always be cutting costs.
Right. And the argument from the sources is that it's not just simple inefficiency. It's become a systemic necessity. It's driven by, well, complex competition and managers just protecting their turf.
So it's not just new industries popping up.
No, it's the unprecedented expansion within existing fields. You suddenly need whole teams of lawyers and compliance officers just to navigate the maze that the fields themselves have created.
So the administrative jobs aren't there to create value for society. They're there to manage internal politics and legal risks.
And to maintain power structures, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The complexity demands the staff, and then the staff. Well, they justify the complexity.
It's a loop, a self-perpetuating cycle.
It is, and this brings us right to the heart of why you might feel so exhausted. If the work is easy, why does an unnecessary job create more stress than genuinely hard, useful labor?
Right. Why the psychological violence, as one source puts it?
The distinction is critical. Believing your job shouldn't exist causes what's described as deep moral and spiritual damage. This isn't just being bored.
It's a conflict inside you.
It is. The tension comes from your brain's basic need for purpose. What one researcher called the joy of being cause, that satisfaction of actually affecting the world.
And when you're forced to do useless things.
You lose that sense of agency, and your brain registers that as distress. It reminds me of what Dostoevsky wrote about his time in a Siberian prison camp.
What did he say?
He said the worst possible torture you could inflict on a prisoner was to make them do something that was manifestly pointless.
Worse than, like, breaking rocks all day.
Far worse, in his view, because breaking rocks, as grueling as it is, has a purpose. The stones get used for a road or a building.
I see.
But forcing a prisoner to, say, move water from one tub to another and then back again forever with no outcome. He said that annihilates the human spirit.
Perpetual, meaningless, busy work.
It's psychologically destroying. It's an attack on your dignity.
And the stats from the modern office kind of confirm we're all just crushing sand. In a way, there's data showing it's getting worse.
It is. A 2016 report on U.S. office workers was pretty alarming. It found that employees spent only 39% of their time on their actual core work.
Only 39%.
That was down from 46% just the year before, a really rapid decline.
So where did the rest of the time go?
It was eaten up by administrative tasks, pointless meetings, paperwork, and just drowning in email.
So the big takeaway here is that over half of our work hours are spent on things we ourselves know are basically useless.
And that's where the tension comes from. You know you're being paid, sometimes very well, to waste more than half your time. It's the stress of being functionally dishonest all day.
Which leads right into the biggest cause of this chronic stress, right? The emotional labor of it all.
The performance, the need to actively pretend that the job matters and that you are incredibly busy.
Let's use an example. What does that performance actually look like?
Okay, take the story of a guy named Calvin. He was an on-call insurance worker. He figured he had maybe 20 minutes of real work a week.
20 minutes a week.
Yep. Processing one very specific type of claim. But he had to be physically there at his desk for 8 hours a day.
So what did he do for the other 7 hours and 40 minutes? How do you hide that?
He had this really intricate and very stressful routine. He had to learn how to discreetly flip between social media, news feeds, online courses, all on a second screen.
Constantly worried his boss would see.
Constantly. But the key part was the energy he spent playing the totally overwhelmed guy. The way he talked, the way he carried himself. It was all an act to signal deep commitment, right up until 5 o'clock.
That performance, I can feel the exhaustion just thinking about it.
It's profoundly draining.
And that act creates these two very specific stressors, doesn't it? First, there's Calvin's situation, the constant high-stakes fear of being found out.
Exactly. But then there's the second stressor, which comes from the managers.
What do you?
Well, the sources say that managers who often realize their teams are underused will just invent dummy tasks to keep them occupied, to make sure they look busy.
This isn't productive work, it's just filler.
It's filler, like the story of Rachel in communications. She was asked to spend hours colorizing these complex mind maps for a report.
A report that no one was going to read?
She knew it. Her manager knew it. She was being paid a good salary to do what was basically arts and crafts.
This is just, it's absurd.
It is. And this environment, where your output has no connection to reality, leads to what one consultant called an inversion of stress.
An inversion of stress, what does that mean?
It means the amount of aggression and frantic energy you see at a job is inversely proportional to how meaningful that job is.
So the less important the work, the more stressed out everyone pretends to be.
That's it. If you're doing something truly critical, like, say, tuberculosis research, the atmosphere is usually calm, collaborative. The goal is what matters.
Because the work has inherent value.
Right. But if you're working on some pointless 12,000-page marketing report, people frantically fake crises. They invent deadlines, demand all-nighters, they act super anxious.
Because they need to substitute that artificial pressure for real meaning.
Exactly. The stress isn't from the outside world, it's generated from internal anxiety.
And the psychological cost of this is huge. It's not just fear of getting fired, it's fear that you're losing yourself.
Yes. There's the story of Lillian. Her job had slowly become nothing over the years, and her biggest fear was that her ability to do good work has completely atrophied.
She hadn't been challenged in so long she thought she couldn't do it anymore.
She was paid to do nothing, and the stress came from inventing ways to hide that fact while also doubting her own competence. The real mental strain is knowing you've been turned into an imposter.
This idea of feeling like an imposter or a parasite that creates this huge moral vacuum, that's another source of the tension, isn't it?
Absolutely. Take Dan. He had a prestigious, high-paying job in finance. His family was so proud of him.
But he felt.
To him, their praise felt like an elaborate ritual sacrifice. He knew his job was useless, and their admiration just made his own feeling of anger and uselessness even worse.
And this is the great contradiction. His internal guilt versus, say, the essential workers. The nurses, teachers, sanitation crews.
The people who know their job is essential.
But are overworked and underpaid. The general rule seems to be, the more obvious the benefit of your work to others, the less you get paid for it.
It's a fundamental contradiction. And on top of all that, society layers on this be happy discourse.
The moralizing pressure.
Yes. The message, especially for younger people, is that if you have a good salary and a good title, you have no right to complain about it being tedious or meaningless.
Your market value is supposed to be your self-worth.
And if you're paid well, you are required to be grateful and happy. It silences any talk about the existential emptiness of it all.
So you're forced to perform gratitude on top of performing busyness.
Right. And the psychological results are severe. It can turn into internalized rage, self-hatred, leading to actual physical illness, which we saw in Nuri's case. He had these debilitating stress-related problems.
Or it just becomes that overwhelming feeling of being a parasite or imposter.
It does. There's another story of Vasily who worked for the foreign ministry. He said the respect he got for his empty job was the worst thing to bear.
Because he knew it was a fraud.
It just amplified his feeling of being a fraud every single day. So what does this all mean for that tension that follows you home?
It's a kind of violence, isn't it?
It is. The exhaustion that never shuts off comes from this pervasive violence that falls upon our culture and our sensibilities. We are trained psychically to accept and perform tasks that almost everyone privately agrees are meaningless.
Just because it's work, and work is seen as inherently virtuous.
It inflicts this deep, daily moral injury on people.
Which leaves us with this huge, profound question. If we've had the technology for decades to create a 15 or 20-hour work week,
And we do.
and yet people are willing to endure this level of mental decay, anxiety, and even physical illness just to perform meaningless work for a paycheck, what on earth is compelling us to keep this broken system going?
It's a central question. And maybe consider this, that as a society, we have collectively decided that it is fundamentally better, and maybe less threatening to the way things are, to assign millions of intelligent, capable people to years of pointless, mind-numbing tasks,
Filling spreadsheets, preparing mind maps.
than to simply leave them free to pursue their own projects, their own learning, and their own passions.